I want to continue this conversation with Dr. Fikile Vilakazi, who's a political analyst. Dr. Vilakazi, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Perhaps to start the conversation here and ask you this, is it a sign of success that the ANC has new splinter parties in the name of the African, not the African Transformation Movement, my goodness. The party recently started by Ismail ACT, the African Congress of Transformation, and the newly formed MK party. Both of these are leaders who were opposed to a Ramaphosa presidency. They are no longer there. Many describe them as the bad apples. The fact that they've started a new parties, does it mean that they've been weeded out successfully and that the bad elements of the ANC has been weeded out successfully? Or is malfeasance so deeply creeped into the crevices of the ANC that one can't say it's a party that has yet renewed?
Good evening, Oliver, and to viewers at home. Those are critical questions I think that we are faced with as a nation. First and foremost, the splinter parties do have some elements, right, of giving the ANC some smaller relief, I would imagine, particularly in the context of Umkhonto weSizwe that has just been formed by the former president Jacob Zuma. In that we know, South Africa is aware that the former president has got a number of, alleged crimes, against his name that have, for a couple of years, dragged the ANC in a very hard, harsh, and I would say even potentially dangerous space, that has compromised the integrity of the organization. So the fact that there has been some movement towards the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe and of course the number of people that have followed the former president in that direction, I imagine must have given the ANC some kind of relief in that sense. However, whether that is a symbol of removal of the elements of corruption within the ANC is something that would still need to watch and test, Oliver. And I'm saying that because former President Jacob Zuma is not the only member of the ANC that has got allegations against his name. There are many others who are listed in the Zondo Commission, as we know, including the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, in terms of the Phala issue and many other issues that, others that are in the NEC. So some of the cases remain unresolved. So the agenda then of renewal of the organization remains solely in that process of cleaning up those elements.
Yeah.
Who are actually the anti-revolutionary forces within the ANC? Is it a group that has went with a splinter MK, perhaps with CAT in the form of Ace Magashule, or do we still have those elements that are sitting somewhere, invisible?
Yeah. Dr. Vilakazi, perhaps to take you to this, the key messaging of the ANC today and whether that resonates with voters today. I want to quote from the president's speech. Again, this line stands out for me. We will prioritize food security, including VAT exemptions on essential items, support community and home gardens, and take action against price fixing. Now, I would imagine if this was a brand new political party saying this, that it would resonate. But this is a party that's been in government for 30 years. How much of that as a promise can resonate with voters today?
Look, I was listening to the president and I was listening to Banyaza speaking as a Sowetan. It felt nostalgic, to listen to the slogans, to the songs, to the names of the icons that we all know from Soweto, from Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, Abo Helen Joseph, Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. I could relate to that personally because I'm a Soweto born and I'm a child of the struggle myself. And I know then how many times those promises have been made, right? And many of us, there's many of us like me who are saying, but we've heard you say this before. And contrary to what we are hearing, then we're seeing the numbers deepening themselves in terms of unemployment, in terms of hunger, destitution, and starvation in the country. So again, Oliver, unfortunately, I think it's just one of those rhetorics that are repeating themselves. And the ANC in the last 30 years has proven not to be, not to lack the ability to put policies of that kind in nature, not to lack ability to also be able to express in those ways. But where they have been lacking is really being able to do. How many times have the ANC said that they are actually stopping unemployment? they're feeding the poor, creating food and so on, but we are finding that the numbers are rising.
Yeah.
But I must point to this, though, that they are probably looking at the social security system that has absorbed, quite millions of South Africans into that system. But and I think for me is a starting point to say, let us get our citizens who are destitute into a social security net. However, is that sustainable? If you're going to have more than 20 million of South Africans absorbed by the security net, what does it mean then in terms of sustainability, in terms of autonomy, in terms of independence of households and just individuals in South Africa? Because you can't keep people permanently on a security net of that kind, particularly when you're talking about 350 grants. Our grants, the highest amount probably goes up to 1,800 when you look at disability and pensions. And when we know, Oliver and fellow South Africans, that those grants are split amongst extended family members.
Yeah.
So it means then that even the social security net that we have is not sufficient. And I want to believe maybe the president is alluding to that when he talks about reducing. But what is the plan to actually create jobs?
Yeah, just the last question I want to touch on with you, Dr. Vilakazi, is this. This is a real success item of this sixth administration. I want to read it to you and ask you how much resonance it has today. The president says in his speech, the NPA's investigative directorate has already charged over 200 persons accused of state capture, setting new records for collecting, the SIU's special tribunal has issued orders freezing 14 billion of assets suspected to have come from state capture, and almost 9 billion in the proceeds of corruption have been returned to the state. That's an actual success story about the ability of the state to take head on the story of corruption. But it's no big names amongst the 200 that have been charged. No one has been seen, sentenced and convicted in this administration. Is that enough to rebuild hope in state institutions, particularly the ones that are supposed to protect us from graft?
I don't think so. I think that we appreciate the fact that there is that kind of demonstration, but I don't think it's sufficient if you want to convince citizens that you are really committed to the work of cleaning up. I mean, if you can see the kinds of verdicts that are given to people that are found guilty of corruption, sometimes it's just a warning. In some instances, they take salaries maybe for 6 months or to a year and so on. So that is not enough. What has the NPA done about apartheid crimes? Let's just go back a little bit better. We know that since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Oliver, there are cases around corruption in apartheid, cases of apartheid crimes, that have not been prosecuted, that are gathering dust in our shelves. And you come forward to democracy as well, as you know, not all the numbers that are in the Zondo Commission have been prosecuted. So it's not enough. We appreciate the
they did set up the office with.
We can do more.
They did set up the office with Romain Cronier, but that didn't last too long, as she is no longer part of the NPA after she had resigned under the leadership of the current NPA National Director, Shamila Batoy. But we're going to have to leave it there, Dr. Vilakazi. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I really do appreciate your insights.